That's probably what we'll do. All right, so we're now recording. Welcome to the pre-planning meeting for the Trimaris Pandemic Conquest Tournament, and which will be starting next week. And His Royal Majesty is attending with us. So, Your Majesty, if there are some things that you want to go over first, it's time for you to do that if you want.
I do. Thank you.
Good.
I'd like to start by saying thank you to everyone here who has entered or who has expressed interest in the tournament. And it seems obvious, but I wanted to take a moment to talk a little bit about why His Former Majesty, the Colonel Marshal, and I had the idea for this and started the tournament in the first place. I don't think it's a secret to anyone to say that our current circumstances have been difficult for everyone in the SCA. The forced separation and the halt to or the temporary halt to our activities has been a little difficult. But we are resilient people and been able to bounce back largely in most areas. But fighting has really been the thing that's been kind of the hardest to recover, and particularly now that we can see dawn breaking on the horizon, if you will, with vaccines becoming more readily available and more being approved as we speak, very much so we can all see sometime in the future that's not that far off where we will start to return to the activities that we all love so much, including fighting. And with that spirit in mind, and with looking at where things are in the state of Florida, and with our COVID restrictions in place, we have figured out a way to hold the tournament and still stay within those restrictions and try to keep everyone safe. And so we wanted to hold this tournament to, as much as anything, to show that we can do that, and we can do it in a safe way. And that we will return to fighting, and we will do so, in a safe way, but as soon as it's practical and makes sense to do. So there's a couple of things I'd like to keep, for everyone to keep in mind, both tonight and as we go forward into the qualifying rounds. First and foremost is your safety and the safety of all the combatants and the people involved in the tournament is our number one, number two, and number three considerations. So please keep that in mind with your, by action and by inaction. We would like you to take every precaution for yourselves and for your friends to make sure that this activity does not become something it doesn't need to be. Of course, His Grace Kern will be going over some of the details of what that's going to mean. But more generally, we'd just like you to keep those things in mind as we move forward. The other thing I'd like you to keep in mind is that the eyes of the known world will be watching. And I mean that quite literally. Since we've announced the tournament and spoken to a few folks, I have had conversation with dukes and princes and kings from lands far off, and other notables and not who are interested in what we're doing, to see if this is something they might ultimately be able to do themselves. As far as I know, there has never been a tournament like this. I mean, forgetting the COVID restrictions for a moment, to my knowledge, there's never been a tournament where we've held it in such a distributed way, with the idea that it would be broadcast on YouTube, both live and then ultimately edited, with a progression similar to the World Cup or any of the other modern sporting events, and ultimately culminating in a finals. To my knowledge, there is nothing like this in the SCA, or at least hasn't been in the past. So we are breaking new ground. So congratulations to all of you for that, for being involved at the ground floor, as it were. What that means also is that the eyes of the world, of the SCA world, if nothing else, will be on you. So please keep that in mind as you participate in the tournament. We want to put our best face forward, and what that means for you is to Please take every effort before you get to the tournament to make sure that all of your armor that needs it has been repaired. If you have duct tape sitting in places it doesn't need to be, please take care of that. If you have stickers or duct tape on your helm from Gulf Wars, perhaps authorization stickers or other things, please take an hour before you get to the tournament to take care of those things. We recognize that armor failures happen, and if repairs need to be made, they need to be made. But we would ask that you take a little bit of time ahead of time to do that maintenance, so that that we are making the best presentation that we can, since this thing is going to be recorded for posterity. And it need not be said, but considering that this thing is going to be taped, I am 100% confident that all of us will behave in word and deed in the manner that I have come to expect, from the best of Trimaris. And with that, I yield back the time to His Grace, the Earl Marshal, who will kind of get into the weeds with you for what we're expecting.
All right, so thank you, Your Majesty. For tonight, we're trying not to keep you here too long. We want to be respectful of your time, so we're going to go over certain things like safety, the tournament, and then after that, we're going to have a fighter Q&A for people who have actually signed up, and then we'll have if anyone here has been tapped as a marshal as well, a marshal Q&A right after that, and then just general Q&A. So we'll be trying to focus on, I don't think we have too many people here tonight that's going to cause a problem anyway if there are questions. So let's start off with talking about what His Majesty brought up, which was safety. We are in wave 1, which means we outside we can have up to 25 people in attendance. There is still social distancing. When you arrive, we'll have the marshal telling you, hey, don't sit that close if you're not sure what 6 feet is. We'll remind you. Make sure you bring your own water. When inviting others, and this becomes an issue in the areas where there are a large number of entrants. So if you recall when, and I'm going to change screen for just a second. That's not it. Where'd it go? Of course, I can't find it when I need it. One of the things that was listed here on line number 7 when you registered, and I recommend that everyone go back and reread all of these rules during registration, is that if we get to a point where we have too many people bringing other people, we may have to ask some non-fighters to leave the area, because we want to be careful. So with respect to that, Her Majesty and His Highness, His Majesty, Her Majesty and His Majesty would definitely make sure you know how to pronounce the person who you're fighting for's name. Make sure you at least know how to say it properly. But that is something that you will, based on the numbers, which we'll get into a little bit in regards to when we talk about the tournament. And then, of course, going back to what I was showing a second ago, which was masks. Remember, you are required to fight with a mask on. I tried to fight with a mask on this past weekend. It is not as easy as you think. The hardest thing is getting it in place. If you have not tried putting a mask on under your helmet, depending on your helmet, make sure that you practice beforehand and do what you can, because it's not easy. Okay, and if you're not used to it, we don't want that to be an impediment the day of the tournament. There will also be face shields provided if you care to use those as well, but masks are the minimum requirement at all times. Okay.
And I would mention, just to tail on that, as anyone who's been to practice in dark water can tell you, since they're a requirement for Seminole County where we hold practice, there's a certain amount of adjustment to wearing a mask while you fight. It actually, I don't find it to be as big an impediment from a breathing perspective as it is from getting it to stay in place. I definitely would recommend that you do it once or twice. Quite frankly, the way I did it was to put one on, put my helm on, and sit in front of my computer breathing in it for while I was doing some other stuff, just to get comfortable with the idea of having it on and whatnot. And You know, the fact is, I don't mind looking silly sitting in front of my computer wearing my helmet and a mask.
Right.
But the breathing is not that bad, but it's the getting the thing on to stay on while you're moving around that it's turned out to be more of a challenge than you'd expect.
And just to reiterate, it's also some of us, depending on how tight our helmets are, it's also difficult to get it just to stay on over your ears. If your ears gets pulled down while you're putting it on, it won't stay. So practice. All right, so Your Majesty, we're going to go into tourney format. Remember, there were 4 regions. This map was provided by Sir, I can't pronounce his name right now, but everyone knows it. Great guy, and
Giovanni.
Giovanni, thank you very much. Yes, thank you. So we have a West region, which will be fighting first, a North region. Those will be happening this upcoming weekend. The East and the South will be on the following Saturday and Sunday. His Majesty has decided that it will be a double elimination. However, because of the number of combatants that have registered for Wyvernwood and Darkwater, we're going to have 2 pools, and this is new, and we will be sharing this. The tournament will not be starting at noon; it will be starting at 11 a.m. Your Majesty, can you tell me or everyone share with everyone how many people have actually registered in all of the regions? I can't remember exactly what
46.
that was. 46. Okay,
46.
so
although to be fair, we've had 2 that have had to bow out due to mundane considerations.
okay, all right. So good number. I think that's excellent. So with respect to the starting time, His Majesty and I will take a look at the individuals that have registered. And if you have an issue with starting at an hour early, then please let us know, and we would put you at the 1 p.m. pool. For Wyvernwood and Darkwater, for each region, 2 combatants will advance to the next round. So in the each region in the in the North region where it's fighting in Gainesville and Crossrail area, the last 2 fighters will not fight it out. They will advance. In Wyvernwood and Darkwater, where we're having 2 pools, the winner of the morning pool will advance, and the winner of the afternoon pool will advance. And the same thing will happen in Darkwater the following week on Saturday. So that's how advancement works. With respect to buy fights, to reduce exposure, we are not going to fight them. If there is someone cannot fight at any time during the tournament, as long as it's before the second round, and it's after the second round, it will just be a forfeiture, and people will advance in that regard. There is something that we have done. If a person wins and advances to the second round, and life comes up and they can no longer participate, we are going to have people on standby from Wyvernwood and Darkwater, the large pools, and they would fill in those missing opportunities, which would only those missing openings, which would only take place before the second round commences. So you can't do it after the second round has been determined. Forfeit is a forfeit. And Your Majesty, did we say that we were going to try and announce the pairings so that people in Wyvernwood and Darkwater would know which pool they should be in by Thursday evening?
Yes. We will send out an email this evening to the people in the Darkwater Starhaven pool and to the Wyvernwood Marcaster pool, letting them know about the fact that we're running 2 pools in each of those regions, and asking them if they have any time restrictions in terms of being able to participate at 11 a.m. or 1 p.m. Based on the responses that we get, we will know if people can be, put in the 1 pool or not, and we will make every effort possible to accommodate everyone and announce those pairings by Thursday evening. So you should come into the tournament at least knowing who your first fight is.
Right. Probably not before the first round starts, we may be able to, we're not sure, but one of the things that His Majesty wants to see happen is definitely on the further rounds is we're going to interview the paired individuals, and we'll probably set up a Facebook Live Zoom session where if you advance and your opponent, maybe we'll have you just like a prize fight where the two fighters get together and talk about how cool they are, or without being insulting to their combatant. That was something that we will let you know about and try to schedule that around what your schedules are. Your Majesty, I don't know if I've forgotten anything else. So before we go into the Q&A, I just want to see if you had anything you wanted to add, if I've forgotten anything, and then we can try and answer everything in the Q&As.
As we move into the second round, we have thus far not announced anything as far as the scheduling of that, mainly on purpose because we wanted to, number one, see how many entrants we got, because to be quite honest, it's already significantly larger than I thought it would be. And two, because we wanted to be as accommodating as we could be to the schedules of the folks that do advance. Given the numbers, we have some tentative plans as far as when the second round will occur for the regions. The plan is for once we have the regional folks who will advance, that the champions of the North region will face the champions of the West region. That would be the Marcaster Wyvernwood pool. The two champions coming from there would face the two champions coming from Oldenfeld and Cross for Castlemere. And the two champions coming from the Darkwater Starhaven pool would face the two champions coming from the Southern Shires pool. We will make every effort to be flexible in terms of scheduling, and we can certainly make some accommodation for folks who have timing restrictions. The only issue being, of course, that we want to tape all of these things so that we can edit them together, and so that we can broadcast that. So we will make accommodations accordingly. So you can expect, if you are to advance, that shortly after the qualifiers are over, you will be getting some contact from the Earl Marshal or myself, where we will work out the final details of exactly how that's going to occur. Tentatively, we would like to do the semifinal round in Crossra, since that's more centrally located for the North and West regions. The Darkwater Starhaven Southern Shires pool, we currently tentatively have in Darkwater, although we'll need to look at the geography for that to see if that makes sense or if there might be a better place to hold that. But that's our plan right now, just so you guys know where this goes if you advance to the next round.
Right, and the semifinals, of course, will if two individuals from the same region advance out of the quarterfinals, then of course we would do it in their location, which would make sense. So, or try to. All right, so here we're going to, Your Majesty, I guess we're going to open up to the Q&A, and you probably have some good questions. If we struggle answering a question, His Majesty will, of course, tell me what to do later, and we will comply, and we'll try to get those answers answered. And we will post this video on the Trimarian Army Facebook page. So if you're not on the Trimarian Army Facebook page or group, then probably join it. It usually gets cross-posted in other places, but we will probably use that as wherever this is posted initially as a place to clarify any questions that we still want to clarify. So if anyone has a question, here you go. Go ahead and start. We're doing fighter questions right now. Marshal questions we can talk about afterwards. So anyone want to unmute themselves and start talking? And I mean, if you want to do raise hands, we can. I didn't see anybody. If you know how to do the raise hand under participants, you can do that, or I don't see anybody jumping to it, so you can just ask.
I had a question on total numbers. Do we know, can you share with us how many numbers are in each pool?
Certainly.
We look at, yeah,
You want me to share that screen, Your Majesty, or would you rather just tell the numbers?
Let me just get down to the numbers. I
Okay.
don't want to get. Give me a moment. Okay, in the Marcaster Wyvernwood pool, we had 18 combatants register, although 2 have since had to withdraw for mundane concerns. So as of right now, there are 16 in the Wyvernwood Marcaster pool in that region. In the Oldenfeld and Crossford Castlemere region, that is region 2, there are 8 combatants registered. In the Darkwater Starhaven pool, there are 12. And in the Southern Shires, the Southern Consortia region, region 4, there are 8.
thank you.
And something I thought of is, some of us have been hitting the Pell during this time. Some of us have not. And I think you're courageous regardless, because, you're willing to put yourself out there for review of fighting. And to me, whether I had been training or not, I would be going for it just like you, because fighting is fun. And I hope that you look at it that way as well. His Majesty and Her Majesty are super excited for this tournament to take place. So anyone else have a question? All right.
Buy fights? Or can you?
Buy fights, if there are buy fights, and there will be based on the numbers, if they don't match up perfectly mathematically to powers of 2, they will just, no fight is required. We're not going to increase exposure. So they will just advance if a buy fight takes place. If a forfeit takes place late in the later rounds, then that person would just advance without having to fight as well.
Are we going to have an opportunity before the fighting starts to do warm-ups, or is that?
If you and someone else who is wanting to warm up want to do a drill over to the side, and you're following the guidelines that are listed on for our tournament, sure, you can do that. Just make sure you give yourself enough time to be ready when your name is called. And I don't see why that's going to be a problem at all. Bringing someone as a warm-up partner, probably not in the larger areas. Remember, we're trying to keep it 25 or less. If you have a group of 8 that are fighting and everybody brings 2 people, we're over. We're going to be over because the marshal's going to be there, their majesties are going to be there. So you can't do that. If you're bringing 1 and you're in a group that's got 8, well, then you're at 16. You probably have a little bit of play. But we really want to reduce the number of people that are involved, and that's why we're spreading this out through the regions initially in the first place. So hopefully that answered that.
On that note, I had heard that there was going to be a limit to the total number of people who were actually going to be accepted per region. It sounds like that's no longer true, but I just wanted to confirm really quick, are all those who registered for the tournament in each region going to be able to participate in?
That is the reason why we went to pools, so that morning pool, there will be 8 combatants in the morning pool. There will be 8 combatants in the afternoon pool, so that we are making every effort to fairly tightly control the number of people that are going to be in proximity to one another at any moment. I mean, the simple fact is that as you heard us talk about earlier, one of the reasons we want to have the tournament in the first place is to demonstrate that we can start to come back to fighting, and under some fairly stringent restrictions, that we can do so in a way that is that adds value, but is also safe, or at least as safe as one could be under the with the way things are these days. And in that fashion, we want to have as many people who want to participate be able to do that as possible, but it has to be within the guidelines that the kingdom has established for holding practices and whatnot. And this allows us to do that. And that was what got us to the idea of having a morning pool and an afternoon pool in the Region 1, Wyvernwood and Marcaster, and in Region 3, Darkwater Starhaven. In Region 2, Encross, Oldenfeld, Castlemere, and in Region 4, the Southern Shires, there will just be the one pool because the numbers are, for those two happen to work out to be a perfect power of 8. Or a perfect power of 2, they're 8. So the one pool will be sufficient.
Halfdan, you had your hand up.
Yeah. So you said Darkwater has 12 entrants?
It is. It does.
So what is the plan for breaking pools up there? Are you just going to do an even split and do 6
We
and
are.
6 and deal with that? Or are you going to
Yep.
try to do 8 and 4? Or...
We're going to do 6 and 6. We looked at that and it just wouldn't, there's no way we could split that with an 8 and 4 that would be fair between that, but since we're not going to fight the buy rounds just for safety's sake. So we'll split that 6 and 6, which means that in the first round of the qualifier in that region, there'll be 2 buys where 2 people will advance to without fighting. There'll be, it also means that in the losers bracket, we essentially will not hold the first round of the losers bracket. Those 2 people will advance and then the buys will be gone.
Okay. And additionally, what email were confirmations sent from? Because I haven't seen mine yet. And I'm just wondering if it got put in spam.
Confirmations of what?
Of entry.
You know, I didn't think of that. And if we hold this tournament again, I will have to do that. But I have your entry.
Okay.
So you are almost certainly confirmed. But yeah, I didn't think to send confirmation emails to the entrance.
When you see your name on Thursday,
oversight.
yeah, when you see, like I said, there's things we haven't thought of, and we should have thought of that. I should have thought of that. His Majesty has a lot going on. The Thursday though, if your name does not appear on the Thursday pairings, then contact us immediately. Understand that if we have to redo something, we will. We want this to be fun and enjoyable. Please don't get upset if we change something around, okay? Because we're trying to make this work for everyone.
And we will make every effort to do that.
Earl Thomas, you had your hand up.
Unmute there. Yeah, I just wanted to, I have an assumption based on what you've just said that the morning pool will fight their tourney and then are expected to clear their
correct.
stuff out of the park and not stay and watch the second tourney as much as we may love to.
Well, it will be live.
Yeah,
it'll be live, so you can
live
watch
stream,
it.
so you can watch it on your phone.
Yeah.
But yes, yes, and that's
that might need to be articulated there.
I apologize for that in advance. I know how much we all love fighting and like watching it if we're not doing it. Except when we're injured and you can't do it, then it's really frustrating to watch.
Go sit in your car.
Yeah, but because of the current restrictions with COVID and et cetera, it just makes sense from a safety standpoint that once that morning pool is done, that we will absolutely be asking the participants to clear the area so that the folks in the afternoon pool can come in, and that not only can they be safe, but the people who participated in the morning side of that can be safe as well.
Thank you. One other question, looking at the ages that are up there. Are you going to have an old timers bracket, like 65 and older?
Well, I didn't want to overpromise and underdeliver, but one of the things that we're doing with this is, as Kern has already mentioned, we will be live streaming the tournament as it happens, to the extent that the technology gods smile on us. But regardless, we will be videotaping it. I have at least 2 different camera angles that are going to be taken, and we will be editing this thing together into a more finished package, including graphics, title cards, the whole shoot match, including UFC style title cards between bouts that will show all those crazy questions that you guys had to answer in the registration about age, height, weight, reach, all that stuff. If you've ever seen a UFC bout where you see that card come up before the fight happens, you might see something like that in the recorded version of this when it comes up.
All I have to say about that is just wow.
Let's just say I've learned a lot about video editing in the last 2 weeks.
Yeah. All right, let's see. Reginald, you had a question. Your hand was up.
I did indeed. Are you going to have a list tree?
We will. For obvious reasons, based on what we've talked about with the multiple pools, we have not posted it yet because we need to make sure that we're accommodating people's schedules. But based on the feedback that we get over the next 2 days, that those pools, the brackets will be posted by Thursday evening.
Should
when I
we
say Thursday evening,
bring,
by Thursday midnight.
should we bring the list tree little shieldlet that hangs up on it? Or will you provide that, or is it
Oh, you're asking if we'll have the list tree, the actual physical
a
list tree?
physical list tree?
I don't think we'll have that. The brackets will be posted on paper and you'll know who's fighting who, but I don't think we'll have the placards on the actual physical tree that we use.
That's what I was looking for. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, if we can get it between now and the weekend, then great. But I don't know if we posted that on the original registration, so we're not going to hold anyone to that. Yeah.
So we maybe we could accommodate that for the next round, but I don't know if we're going to have time to do it before this one because we'd also have to produce the placards as well. Oh, before I forget about it, I know there's rumors come up a couple of times. I don't think there's anybody on the call right now who's confused about it, but this is not Crown Tournament. This is not the Champion of Trimaris tournament either. You know, we had some discussion about that, and you know, given the importance of those two tournaments, we and given, quite frankly, the fact that that there is change on the horizon as far as this the pandemic is concerned, we felt that those were important enough that we want to wait to do those in person if it's possible to do at all. This is a tournament for us to, you know, particularly as many of us have not had a chance to fight for a year, for a chance for us to knock the dust off, to have some fun with each other, and to start that path back to being able to do this full time again.
Mm. And His Majesty and I came up with a little nickname. So whoever wins will be the COVID, COVID, the champion of virtuality in Trimaris. Anyway, the COVID. Halfdan, you had a question again. There you go.
So presuming that this is successful and well received, what's the likelihood that we attempt a tournament of this nature again once we're back to regular physical gatherings? And
it's a little bit early, but to be honest, the numbers that we're seeing in the tournament are roughly twice what I expected. So thanks to that for you guys, by the way. But if this is successful, if we're able to pull this off and people are able to have a good time doing it, it's entirely likely, certainly within our reign, that we will do something like this again, whether it's this exact format or there's been some discussion of converting to something more akin to how the NCAA works, or how more professional sports leagues work in terms of a season and a playoff at the end. It's really too early for us to say exactly what that would look like, but I imagine that if this is successful, there will be some form of something like this in the future.
Cool.
Now, additionally, I was messaging back and forth with Snorri, and we were talking about how exciting it would be if we wound up doing this again, when we're like having wars and such. We convince a bunch of other kingdoms to do it, and we send all of the
Halfdan, it's like you
to
were
a
sitting there in the
tournament.
room with Kern and I talking about where this might go.
Yeah.
Midian, you had a
I'm
question?
excited to hear it.
I do. I mean, aside from the obvious, the stated goal, which is to make sure that we can do this and we can do it safe, I'm curious, Your Majesty, if there's any other criteria you have for success.
I do. As I mentioned at the outset, my number 1, number 2, and number 3 goals is to make sure that the safety of the combatants, the tournament staff, and the spectators, to the extent that we have them, is respected and protected. Number 1. Beyond that, my goals are to start towards the process of reintroducing fighting to our kingdom. And to be quite honest about it, given the enforced break that we've all had from fighting, in addition to helping us just get back into the swing of thinking about fighting, let alone actually doing it, I think that one of the things that this pandemic has forced us to do as an organization is to embrace technology in a way that we never have before. And the simple fact is that once we've started to think that way, I won't say that something like this became obvious, because it wasn't. It took us a year to get here. But once we did, and once the idea came out, it was clear, oh, this is, can be a way for us to engage with more people who love fighting, who can't necessarily always make every tournament and see the progression of things through the year. That's one of the reasons why we hope that this is successful, and that it allows us to refine the idea into something that we can do on a more ongoing basis that will, one, serve as to generate training content, because of course, I don't know about you, but I watch fighting videos all the time and break down what people are doing, how they're doing it, how they progress. Certainly I can see many benefits as a knight, being able to look at the performance of potential candidates, but also just in promoting the SCA, promoting this organization, this sport that we all love. I hope, if it's done correctly, that this can be an important and positive step forward to do that.
Very good. Thank you, sir.
Of course, Midian, I'm not sure if you were thinking about it, but or part of your question, fighting courteously and chivalrously is paramount at all times, without question. And this is if it does get spread throughout the media, the social media thing. Who knows what it can be used to? First person ever sees something on somebody's, link or sharing, like they get to see this tournament. They're like, wow. And listen, nothing compares to being able to fight a bunch of people at an event in person. But this is our effort to try and do it safely, like His Majesty said. So, but all the things that would normally take place, courtesy, chivalry, goes without saying. So if that happens, and we get to fight, Midian, I think His Majesty would agree that would be a success.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So unless anyone else has a question, I think we're at about 40, just under 40 minutes, because we started a couple minutes after 8. And I don't want this video to get too long and too bulky. So unless someone else has a question, yeah.
I'm in a chat with Kenny. Also, he had a few questions, so if you could just get with him afterwards, there was a few things.
Okay, if he has a Marshall question, he can always. I talk to Kelvin on a weekly basis, it seems, lately. So yeah. One last thing I wanted to say. Remember, take a look at the when you signed up the rules again. The size of the field is Your Majesty 20 by 20. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
Okay, so just be aware of that when you plan your strategy, and what people do and how they plan for it is going to be interesting. So anyway, but Kelvin, I'll definitely contact you. All right, everyone. I appreciate you being here. I know His Majesty does as well. And Vivat Trimaris.
Vivat Trimaris.
Vivat Trimaris.
Viva
Thank you.
Trimaris.
All right, Your
Have a good
Majesty, may we have your leave?
Absolutely. Have a good evening, everyone.
All right, everyone. Bye-bye.
Adios.
All right.
Bye.